Wow, look at this underpaper. Isn't it gorgeous? Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So today I'm going to be making more masterboards. Here are those I made in last week's video, and I will leave a link to this above and below. But this week I want to make them in a different way, and I am very much going to be using my gel plate today. So I'm still using two A3 sized pieces of mixed media paper. The paper isn't terribly thick, but it's fine for this. So I actually talked throughout this video, but I discovered I had an hour and a half of footage, so just too much. So instead I'm going to put it at double speed and do a voiceover. So I'm just showing you there that I'm going to put paint down on my plate, which I haven't cleaned, and I'm literally just going to turn the plate over and put it down and onto my sheet. My roller was sticking there, the brayer was sticking because there was that much paint underneath it. So I'm starting with indigo. I want to create quite a dark base layer on this. And I didn't put it over the entire thing because that would take up quite a lot of the sheet. So I'm just doing little bits. You'll see there's little gaps. That's partly because the stuff still sticking to the plate. It's partly because my plate I have had for a very long time. There's indentations, and also partly because the paper has a bit of a texture to it. But none of that is an issue because these are just the base layers. So I think this next colour is a medium green. You'll see I'm using a wide variety of paints here. I do get out some craft paints in a little while. I use some of them, but some of them were completely dried up. So as I'm doing this, I'm okay if things overlap. I'm trying to get it right up to the edge of the sheet. Obviously, putting colour on top of colour, I will create interest, I will create depth, and really that's what I'm trying to do here as I build up the layers. So I'm now bringing out this turquoise. This is actually one of my favourite turquoise. I think it's by Reeves. It's quite a thick one and I like this. I will introduce other colours later, but at the moment you can see I'm really just sticking to kind of blue-greens. And you see that as that lifts, you can see little bits of, for example, the green underneath there. So exactly the effect I'm looking for. It's kind of going down in rectangles. I'm not necessarily trying to get these perfect. In fact, I would not want them perfect because this is all about getting a result that at the end, when it's complete, you'll be able to see right through it. So yeah, here's where I pulled out the craft paints to do the next layer, and I opened some of these up and really they wouldn't even come out of the tube. I've had some of these for years and years and years, and you know, as I said last week when I brought out some other paints and they'd gone thick, you know, if you don't use them, they're just going to go that way. They don't last forever. So I cut a big bit out there because I was yammering on, I think, about how difficult it is to try and recycle some of these. So I've got now a dark purple. I'd already tried a red or something and it just wouldn't come out. So you see again, I have not cleaned the plate. I did not clean the paint off my brayer, and so I've got a mix of the kind of purple and the turquoise, and yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Still getting gaps on the background, but that's fine. You'll see how I address that later. Just taking some of the paint off the brayer there, and I bring out this, I think it's called pomegranate, and this was not good. I'm going to leave this in just to show you how I then deal with the issue, but I got this out and I thought nope, so I added a bit of the purple in. I didn't want to add too much in, but I added that in and I thought so here goes. Tried a bit and it's like okay, yeah, I'll try that again. Roll it out a bit, get the bit off the roller, Wasn't loving it, but you know, when you do layers like this, it's fine, it's not a problem, because you know you can just simply cover it over. That was another one that had paint stuck in the bottom of it. So now I've picked up this Hauser Light Green, I think it's called. I used to quite like this paint. I used it quite a bit in the past, and look at that, got a big thick top on it, and it's all gloopy inside, and out comes a big chunk. I had to fish that out, put it back in, yeah, and I'm covered in paint. Nothing unusual there. So here I go. What was I trying to do here? I add some purple to it. I decided that the green was just too light. I want to introduce some lights, but not until later on. So I started to mix that and thought, no, I don't like that, so we'll add a bit more of the purple. I really didn't like this at all. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I probably just have to get rid of this entire plate of paint, but I'll give it a go and see what it's like. Sometimes you've just got to do that. And right away I thought, no, but I'll stick it down in a couple of places, because if you put it in a few places, you can then say, well, maybe it does work. It didn't. And there you can see I'm just taking the rest of it off on my undersheet. So, right, we've got that colour down there. It is what it is. Like I say, with acrylics, they are very forgiving. You can just cover them up. So I've now got an ultramarine blue. This is actually some of the Arteza paints that I've also had for a long time. So it's very bright, but again, that's okay. I'm creating dark layers, and I know that when I layer other things on top, it might actually change a bit. And when I saw that down there, I thought, no, that's actually fine. I'm okay with that. And I want to start to introduce a lot of contrast. So now going to bring in some crimson red, and I actually really like this red. Again, not cleaned the plate or the brayer, so it does mix in a little bit. Obviously with the ultramarine that was there before. And to me, that just started to introduce a slightly different dimension. Again, loving that I'm seeing the little bits of the colour underneath just popping through. So now I have a phthalo blue. This I think is a semi-transparent, mixing it right on there with the crimson. And I really liked, I guess it was a kind of purple that it produced. I really liked this. So quite dark. Just go over other areas, just trying to get all the paint off. Now the phthalo green. And again, this is a kind of semi-transparent, and I think the transparent paints or semi-transparent paints are really good for also helping to add layers and depth to pieces. Now that's gone on quite dark, like that pop of green at the top there. But you can see here how the sheet is starting to fill up. Still a couple of areas with some little white spots coming through, but you know, I'm just going to keep building some more layers. I kept finding little bits on the plate. I don't know if it was from that gloopy paint earlier or if it was just some of the debris that was still on the plate from previous times, but trying to reintroduce a bit more of the red. And this is the thing I find myself doing. If one colour that I like kind of gets completely covered, then I will just come back in with that colour. So the little gaps now, I'm deciding that actually it might be easier just to use my small gel plate, just to put some in specific areas. So I think this is the ultramarine. Again, it's changed colour a bit because it's got some of the red, and I dropped it there, but that's okay. I just rubbed it out a bit, just going in, and with the smaller plate you can really push in that little bit more. So this is the phthalo green, and again just going in. So I'm not looking to do rectangles or anything like that. So I'm trying at times not to have hard edges, so you'll see I sometimes roll over them, brayer over them. That was a bit of a dendritic effect there. Now I'm thinking, oh, I'd like to reintroduce some of the turquoise because I've lost the kind of turquoise that was there from earlier. So I will go back in and do a bit of that. And you see that at times I'm just touching it down, I'm not trying to get the full plate down. Just almost softening it by pressing the plate back down a few times there. Again, finding little bits that have come off the plate and sticking to the paper. And just using up the paint on the brayer now, really, just to get it all off. Now back to the red, the crimson. And adding this just in a few spots as well. So I'll keep working away on this layer, and I'm just going to play a little bit of music for the next minute or so.
Blue dude, blue moon, kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue.
So I'm now going to set this one to the side to dry, but I will be coming back to it, and I'm going to start on my next sheet. I'm going to use slightly different colours here: burnt umber, yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And I also decide to add some crimson in later on, but again you'll see I've not cleaned the plate, so I know that probably at some point some of those undercolours will start to show through. So I did play a little bit of music a moment ago. I do like adding music to my videos and not talking the whole way through, especially if there's not much to say. But a lot of people ask me about the music. I have a subscription with Epidemic Sound, so well, I pay it annually because it's slightly less expensive to do so, and it just gives me a range of music that I can use. I always link the music down below, so if you hear something that you like, you can go below and you can get you get the name of the singer, the name of the piece, or not necessarily the singer, the musician, it's sometimes instrumental, and there will be a link to Epidemic Sound. You can click on that link and it will not cost you anything. It's only using the music where you need to have a subscription, but you know, you could go in and listen to every piece of music that I use and it wouldn't cost you anything. I don't even think you need to set up an account or anything. You can just click on it and listen. So yeah, so there we go. So you see here I'm starting to add in some of the crimson. I am kind of mixing it in with what's there, and this piece ends up very warm looking in terms of the colours, quite a kind of rich earthy colour I would say, and almost quite autumnal, and the weather here is getting quite autumnal. We've not really had a summer. we've not had the extreme heats that there have been over the last couple of years. I think in other parts of the UK, probably in England in particular, certain parts of England, I think they've had it quite hot at times, but really we've not had many what I would call hot days at all. It's been quite pleasant, albeit it's been quite rainy and quite windy. So yeah, today it was a mixture, sunshine and rain at times. And the downside of that is I was having to close blinds, and then it gets a bit darker, and but I like to create in the kind of natural light rather than having artificial light. You'll see that I sometimes just use the brayer there to roll the paint out a bit. But again, it's very much as before, just keeping on adding those kind of colours and using the smaller plate to fill in the gaps. Okay, so back to the first sheet, and I'm moving on now to starting to add some stencils. I'm going to use some slightly lighter colours, still going to use the gel plate, and I've got there the yellow ochre, and I think it's also a Naples yellow, and all I'm going to do is to roll the paint out on the plate and really just to press the stencils in. These are stencils from PM Artist Studio. They are not the ones that I bought recently. I've had these for quite some time. If I can find them on the website, I will try and link them. If I don't, then you see one that you like and you can't see it on the site, then do let me know, but check the details down below anyway. Again, you'll see there's still some crimson mixing in there, and I actually like that. So I had one of the bits that I actually cut out was, a lot of people have been wishing me, you know, all the best, speedy recovery for my wrist, etc. I've not mentioned it for a couple of weeks, but I thought I'd just give you a little update on that. It is healing, there's no doubt about that, but it is extremely painful. I'm doing exercises every day. I'm getting more movement back in it. I've still not got complete movement. You will see, possibly, but maybe not since it's on at double speed, but from time to time when I do something with my left hand, I kind of wince a bit. And there is a kind of lump, although they've said the bone is back in the right place, there is a lump that's kind of developed on the outside edge of it. And for that reason, I am still wearing my watch on my right arm. But yeah, it is what it is. As well as doing the kind of daily exercises, I am also trying to do as many normal things as possible. That fell on there, so I just press it in. Yeah, I'm trying to do as many normal things as possible, and it's a question of if it starts to hurt, I just need to stop. So there I am, I'm just kind of pressing the stencil in a bit. I don't want all the paint to transfer over onto my sheet, but you know, I do want some of it to go on. I want the under layers to be showing through, and that's quite a good example of it. So, you know, I want the pattern there to show a bit. It doesn't have to be the perfect pattern. I want some of the colour to come over, but I still want to be able to see the layers underneath. And I did something like this, oh gosh, I'm saying I did something like this as if I've only done it the once. I've done it a lot, but I think I did have a video where I actually did it outside in my garden. So if I can find that, I'll link that below, and I will also try and remember and link it at the end of the video. So I do like that crimson. I've decided, added in a bit more there, but I felt it was, again, just a little bit too pink, I think. Added in some of the yellow ochre, and it was getting really quite thick now, so back to the Naples yellow. And you know, sometimes it's fun just mixing, just to see where you get to. So putting that down, just using the brayer to go over it, and it just helps push the pattern into the plate. Filling up the little bit of space, and then I will simply take that over and put some of that down. And you'll see that it's just slightly different colour to what's down there already. So again, this just helps build layers. I don't mind if I go over the ones underneath. In some instances it's just the paint that's transferring and not a lot of pattern, but again, that's absolutely fine. It's about the layers and the depth. So I'm loving how this looks, and I decided to leave it at that point to dry, and I will be back to do some more, but I'm now going to move back over to the other one and get the next layer with the stencils on it. Now, if you're watching this and you think, oh, that's all good and well for somebody that's got all these stencils, you can do this kind of thing without stencils. If you've got some paper, some paint, you can mark make with really anything, and I've got videos on my channel where I am using nothing more than household items. So, you know, I believe that art should be open to everyone, and yes, we need a few basics to do at least some art, but please do check out those videos if, you know, you feel you can't do this because you've not got everything I've got. You don't need it. You really don't need it. You don't even need a gel plate. I've even got a video on monoprinting without a gel plate, and I'll leave that below. Just showing you there that some of the earlier paint lifted up, and I love when it does that. So, okay, so I'm following the same kind of basic thing here. I'm going to introduce some of that turquoise, because I'd liked that little blue there, and I thought, yeah, I need to get more of that into here. So again, let's just have a wee bit of music just to take us through this part. So again, I'm loving how this looks at this stage. You know, with this sort of thing, could stop at any point, but I want to continue because there's more I want to add to it, more layers. I think I was just pointing out there all the interest that was still on that plate. The next layer I'm going to put on is gold, but what I decide to do is to try and lift this first of all. I just put that one down in the background because my drop sheet is getting so wild it was hard to see the gel plate against it. So I decided to pull this with gold paint and with a piece of tissue paper. I'm just adding a little bit of the gold at a time. Now, round the edges of the plate, the paint was very thick and it was almost getting that crusty way. And those bits are great to get up, but they can be a little bit more difficult to get up. So I put this is a wet strength tissue paper, so it's pretty strong. Smooth it out, doesn't matter to me if there are any creases in it, just all adds interest. Still some paint on the roller there, but I'm really just trying to get it firmly down onto the gel plate. Now I did leave it a few minutes, but I probably should have left it for longer because it wasn't quite ready to lift. Now you can see me gently pulling away there, and you know, the way that acrylic paint is constituted, whether it's layer upon layer upon layer, it really just does become like a plastic, and sometimes the paint was almost pulling off. It was so strong, so thick, it was kind of pulling off. And I did get a couple of tiny rips in the paper, which is unusual with the wet strength, but I think it was just because the layers were so thick and I didn't leave it quite enough. But I wanted the plate cleaned as far as possible, not everything off, but a few of these bits. So I struggled a little bit, but it was worth it because there's some great stuff on there, and you can actually see how those edges are flaking up. So I looked to maybe take off a couple of little bits of paper that was stuck, but the paint I was just going to leave anyway. So this is a piece of wallpaper that was sent to me by Sharon from the channel Texture Junkies, hand delivered to me by Lisa from Making It with Minglet when we met up a few months ago. So I want to cut a square out. I love this paper. I was slightly loath to cut into it because you had it, you know, folded nicely and little things tucked into the package, but I really wanted to try it, so I've cut out one square for now. And I'm going to use this with gold paint, and I start by just pressing it into the paint, but then it actually works better more using it as a stamp, as you'll see in just a moment. So just going to roll some paint out, and at this point I discovered there was a split in the tube of paint, and there's more coming out the side than there is coming out the top. So I press that in, lift it, and then I'm going to try it on here. And I don't think I'd used quite enough paint at that point, so I try a bit more, slightly thicker. Press it in again. I then decide that if I put it down like this, I will probably get that big, thick frame, in a sense, of the gold paint around it, which I don't want. So I'm just taking it off with a tissue there. I should have just taken a piece of paper and kind of masked it off, but certainly getting a nice imprint there, that would be picked up beautifully by tissue paper. But when I put it down, I'm not quite getting the effect I wanted. I can see it, but it's not quite as clear as I wanted. So yep, there we go, it's scooshing out the top, out the split rather than out the proper bit. but I just brayer it over and then I start to put that down, and I'm getting a much better effect that way. So I decide to continue that way with it. And I basically do this over both sheets of paper. There it is, coming out the top again, the wrong end. I did actually, after I kind of signed off, I think I still filmed it, but I'll maybe show it next week. I rolled out a lot of the gold paint onto the plate, and I have put some tissue paper over it. It's been sitting now for hours. I've not pulled it yet, but I'll maybe pull that when I do my next video, just so you can see what it brings up. So I've ended up with a bit of a big gold bit in the middle there, but that's fine. I can always I'll be cutting these up for other things, and if needs be I can adjust at that time. And I love that. I love the fact that there's some of the earlier stencils still peeking through and some of the colours still peeking through. So I now move on to this one and basically do the same. So there are another set of masterboards that I want to make before I start doing all my projects. I'd quite like to try and make them for a midweek video if I can, but I've got a really busy week coming up. So, you know, it might be next weekend before I can get it done as well. But once I've got that done, I then plan to make some mass make projects. I've got a few things in mind, and I hope you'll join me for the next masterboard video, as well as for whatever I make beyond that. So I had a lot of fun doing this. This is one of these kind of easy make projects that you really don't have to think about too much. You know, you get your paper out, you get your paints out, and stencils or mark making tools or whatever, and just go with the flow. So yeah, I'm covered in paint, but I'm loving the way those colours are peeking through and those other textures, you know, the depth. And although there's depth in it and there's texture in it, it's actually very flat. It's not that it's actually sticking up. And, you know, I think the two, with the different colours, I love them both. There's not one that I like more than the other. So really looking forward to starting to use these. I will not copy them. I know some people copy their masterboards and then use the photocopies, but I will just cut these up. I like to kind of make them from scratch every time. So that's it for this week. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a good week, and I hope you will join me next time. Thanks ever so much for watching. Do take care. Bye for now.